recording going? Excellent. And so I'd like to officially welcome all of you to our Future of Automotive Core Tools deep dive. Today we're going to be looking deep into the new AIAG APQP and control plan reference manuals. We have quite a bit of information that we want to share with you during today's session. So we'd love for you to share with us in the chat, where in the world are you joining us from today? Where in the world? We got quite a global international audience. Thank you, Lori Jo. She's in Troy, Michigan, the heart of Motor City, up there in Michigan. Let's see. I think, Steve, you're also up there in Michigan, unless you're traveling today. Yep, zoom, zoom. Indeed. So please share with us in the chat where you are joining us from today. I am joining you from Rutherfordton, North Carolina, halfway between Asheville and Charlotte, North Carolina, kind of in the forest, in the foothills forest there as well. Yes, excellent. So Martin is in Querétaro. Victor, I'm going to need you to help me pronounce some of that, near Grand Rapids. Steve, welcome. And of course, Ezra, you're in Gaffney. Excellent. So glad to have you guys with us. And Edgar from León, Mexico. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. So I wanted to also just invite you to share your thoughts on how the automotive core tools can benefit you, your organization, your customers, and the overall automotive industry. And I like to start each one of our Future of Automotive Core Tools sessions by asking this question and getting you to really think about it, because certainly it's easy for us to get tied up in the technical aspects of these automotive core tools, but at the end of the day, those core tools are serving a purpose for us in the jobs that we're doing within our organizations, for our organizations in making money, hopefully, in the automotive space, also serving our customers by ensuring, in the case of APQP, launch readiness, and good products, good quality products on time sent to our customers, and overall for the industry. And that's one of the things I'd really like for us to be thinking about as we look to these changes that we're going to discuss during today's session. So if you'd like to share your thoughts with us in the chat, we invite you to do so. We'd love to hear your input. Also, just by way of reminder, what the Future of Automotive Core Tools is all about, this is an initiative that we established back in 2016 in order to bring all voices into the discussion about what the future of the automotive industry looks like, especially from an automotive quality perspective. And we really have established facts so that we can have an open forum of discussion, idea sharing, best practices, and really anticipate what the future of the industry could be. Victor, if you can mute, if you could take care of muting that. Yep, perfect. Thank you. So what we're going to be focusing on during today's session is our new core tools from the Automotive Industry Action Group, AIAG. So on March 1st, the AIAG released their new control plan reference manual, as well as the third edition of APQP. We're very excited to have these out because they are, I'd say, long overdue. We were talking back in 2016 about this update. So we're really thrilled to see that they're finally out and available for organizations. And if you have not already gotten your manuals, they are available at AIG.org. And in fact, I'd like to find out how many of you have obtained your copies of these new AIG reference manuals. So this is the tool that we're going to use to kind of get our conversation going today regarding these core tools. It's called Menti. So if you would like to join us in the conversation, you're welcome to either scan the QR code, and that'll automatically bring you into menti.com and each of the polls that we put up, so you'll be able to participate. Otherwise, if you're on your computer and you'd like to just open another browser, go to menti.com. It's going to ask you for a code, and you can just type in 2231-4615. And once you have that browser open, you can just leave it open, because our subsequent questions will just flow right in for you. So have you obtained your copies of these new AIAG reference manuals yet? We'd love to hear from you. Weigh in if you've got your manuals yet. Yes, no. If you're unsure, you could certainly mark that as well. So we'll give folks a second. Thank you, Victor. Excellent. So we'll give you guys a second to see who has their manuals. I have to say that I'm on my third order. of the manuals. Every time I order a couple, somehow they disappear as we are out visiting clients, and everybody's very excited to see these new manuals as well. So let's see if anybody is able to get into Menti. Are you guys okay getting into Menti? Here we go. Okay, so I've got a no. I got a couple of no's. So it's time to go shopping at AIAG.org. Please go check that out. Please go check that out. All right, and you can continue to add into that question if you have not had a chance yet to vote. So still some no's. All right, well, good. So today's overview is going to be really helpful, I think, for many of you just to get a sense of what to expect when you do order your copy. And then the other question I have for you is, has your organization adopted these updated APQP and control plan reference manuals? Really from the standpoint, are you looking to bring these processes, these updates to your APQP process as well as the control plan process into your organization's management system activities, and particularly your quality management? So would love to hear you guys weigh in on this, if there's plans to adopt, if you already adopted. I know it's still early. We've only had the manuals out literally for 2 months as of today. So maybe it's still something that your organization is looking to see what your customers expect. Maybe you're considering what the impact is going to be to your business as well. Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. So got a couple of unsures and a couple of no's. And again, hopefully today's session is going to give you some insights as to how your organization might go ahead and adopt these updates to APQP and control plan. So we have 45 minutes together today, and I will tell you I've got a few bonus minutes at the end in case there's some additional questions. What I'd like for us to cover together in this 45 minutes is 7 key change themes that we have recognized in the new APQP 3rd edition. I'm going to talk about one bonus control plan topic, and we'll also do a control plan deep dive in one of our subsequent LinkedIn live sessions. But today I really want to focus on APQP because my first impression when I saw the APQP manual, the 3rd edition, when I first opened it up back in early March was, oh, there's not really much change. But then as I dug deeper, I was like, oh, okay, there is quite a bit that has changed here, and really up-leveling the APQP process and the expectations of organizations who are applying APQP. So we're going to talk a little bit about what these changes may mean to you in your organization. I really want this to be focused on you mapping into, how is this going to look in my organization, or what do I need to do with this information, especially as you start looking through that APQP manual, and what are some actions that you guys can take right now in your organizations to support these new changes. And then we'll also talk about what's next for the future of automotive core tools before we wrap up today's session. So the 7 key changes that we're going to discuss today related to the new AIG APQP 3rd edition is musts now make APQP auditable, leadership takes the lead, introducing gate management, APQP starts at gate 0. That sounds interesting. All 5 phases of APQP apply to all. Sourcing is now in scope. And then APQP output change management. And as I mentioned, we have a little bonus yet to talk about safe launch and control plans. We'll also cover that. Stefan, thank you. You're not implemented, but planned for this year. Awesome. So hopefully this is going to give you a little kind of boost forward in helping your organization with that implementation. So one of the tools that we put together just to help you in our discussion today is this worksheet. And Victor, if you want to go ahead and drop that again into the chat so everybody can access that, or if you received an email confirmation last night, Victor also included this worksheet there as well. And we just wanted you to have something that you could capture some of your notes from our discussions today, and maybe even kind of start your to-do list, right? Start your to-do list of what you're going to be working on. So that is available for you. As you guys are accessing that, just I wanted to remind you about APQP and control plan in case we've got some folks who are new to these topics. APQP stands for Advanced Product Quality Planning. In fact, the APQP reference manual has been around since 1994. That was when it was first released. And it really only had one revision between 1994 and today. Guys, that's 30 years, right? That's 30 years. And that happened in 2008, where there was some adjustments that were made mainly around customer specific requirements, not major changes that were made at that time. So what we see in this new APQP third edition is some pretty significant adjustments or upgrades, if you will, to the APQP process based on our expectations of our automotive customers and feedback of best practices in the industry as well. One of the motivations behind the update to the APQP manual, of course, is the changes that we're seeing happening currently in the automotive industry with electrification and autonomy and software-defined vehicles. And in fact, I was just reading the other day about a vehicle launch, I think that Toyota did, that was a 24-month launch for a new vehicle. I think it was an electric vehicle. So this is becoming the norm, and the days in the past when we had 5 to 7 years to roll out a new vehicle, that's not going to happen anymore. We have to be a lot quicker getting those vehicles out there, and APQP is the tool that's going to help us with that. And just also a reminder, in the past, control plan, which I'm sure you folks are remembering, is our kind of, I call it the catalog of product and process controls. That particular core tool was tucked into the back of the APQP manual originally, and now it has sprouted its own wings and it's got its own manual, which I'm very excited about because it well deserves it when you consider how many references the IATF 16949 Automotive Quality Management Standard makes just to control plan, 30 plus references, and the fact that control plan is one of those top nonconformities in IATF audits as well. So hopefully you guys had a chance to download that worksheet that we shared with you. I just also wanted to kind of reflect on the APQP third edition reference manual, that it is structured into 5 chapters that detail the 5 phases of APQP. That has not changed, but something around those 5 phases has indeed. And they've done some extensive updates to the appendices where the planning, the product quality planning checklists previously were, well, they're still in there, but they've really enhanced those checklists to make them, I'm going to say, a lot more applicable and a lot more usable. And also they've added a whole new appendix on gated management. We're going to be talking about that. That's one of our key changes. And they've expanded their appendix about analytical techniques as well. They're really encouraging sector-specific guidance. So one of the things you'll see in the back of both this APQP manual and the new control plan manual is really a call to action for industry sectors that are a bit unique and different coming into automotive. Think semiconductor as an example, and asking those representatives from those industries to kind of step forward and say, okay, are these ideas going to work, or what adaptations maybe do we need to make with these core tools to make them relevant for your industry sectors as well. So I'm ready to hit the first must, or the first change rather, which is about musts actually. And this was pretty surprising, I guess you would say, to me, because having been around since the inception, or probably prior to the inception of the automotive core tools, the core tool manuals have historically been reference manuals, and in fact they are called reference manuals, with the exception of PPAP, production part approval. Our core tool manuals have been basically for guidance, and maybe some automotive customer specifics would reference these core tool manuals. Well, now with the rollout of the APQP third and the new control plan manual, the strategy is that the word must is appearing within these reference manuals with the intention that if your automotive customer, in their customer specific requirements, mandates the use of this core tool, and or your organization says, hey, we do APQP in accordance with the AIAG APQP manual, now those must statements within these manuals become auditable. So I really want to make sure that you guys hear that, because there are quite a few musts. In fact, I think in the APQP manual alone, the word must shows up like 176 places, which is almost as much as we see in the IETF for shalls, right? So I want you guys to be thinking about this and the implications to your organization. And also, hey, do you have any automotive customers that are currently requiring your organization to follow APQP? Maybe in the past they made reference to it. I will say if your organization is a customer or a supplier, excuse me, to GM, to General Motors, they have the intention, I'm not sure if it's been officially communicated yet, but by September of this year, they expect their suppliers to be utilizing APQP. Yeah, so we've already got one that, yes, your automotive customers are saying, yes, you need to be utilizing this APQP approach. The good news is when we start looking at some of these other changes that we see, especially in the APQP manual, you probably have something in place already. So it's not going to be, like a complete rewrite of how you do product and process planning and launch readiness. It's going to be more just some adjustments here and there. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing there about automotive customers. So in our worksheet, I just wanted to bring you back to this so that you could kind of take a moment to think about, okay, so the musts are now making APQP and control plan auditable. And so what customers, if you are a supplier to GM, you could say, yep, that's gonna mean that we're gonna need to really embrace or incorporate the new APQP third edition into our organization's APQP or product process planning process by September for new programs with GM in particular. Or, maybe you're going to look at these changes and say, well, some of these things really make sense. You can perhaps refer to certain pieces of the requirements or the musts that are in the APQP manual without necessarily adopting all of that from an internal standpoint as well. So I'd love to hear if anybody wants to put into the chat, what does this mean to you? What do these musts mean to you? And maybe what are some actions that you're considering around these musts? What do these musts mean to you? And we'll see like some of these other key changes are going to be associated with some of the musts that are coming up there. So what does this mean to you? And you're also welcome to just reflect for yourself what the musts mean for you. It's mandatory. That's right, Martin. It's mandatory and it's auditable. So those IETF auditors, when they come in to perform their surveillance or recertification audits or even initial audits, if they see you've got an automotive customer pointing to the AIAG APQP manual or you're referencing it internally, then they can open that book and start asking some questions to look for evidence. Absolutely. Thank you, Edgar. Mandatory as well, most definitely. All right, let's move on to our second key change, and this is leadership takes the lead. Now, this may seem a bit benign, but if you go back to the previous version of the APQP manual, which didn't, by the way, have musts, it had a lot of shoulds, but it was a reference manual, we tended to use the terminology of management, maybe in some places top management, related to an organization's APQP process. What you're going to see in this APQP third edition is leadership. So the word management is now replaced by leadership. And this is in alignment with what we see in ISO 9001. You guys will remember ISO 9001 changed Section 5 requirements to now be about leadership, and there's a lot more focus on the terminology of leadership. So I want you to think about this relative to your organization, and this is really going to be about to what extent is your leadership actively involved currently in your organization's APQP process? Is it not at all? Or, hey, are they consistently leading the APQP process? Because the idea behind this shift in language from management to leadership is from more of a tactical execution to more of a strategic view about APQP. Certainly there's still some tactical execution that needs to take place, but there's really a desire by your automotive customers to see your leadership actively involved in the APQP process and really taking the lead of the APQP process as well. So what does this mean? If your leadership team is not familiar with your organization's APQP process and not currently involved, it's going to mean like defining what is going to be their role. what are our expectations in terms of how they're going to participate in the APQP process. Yeah. So, um, yeah. So I see that. Good. So we got a couple of folks that have said leadership involvement is a little bit towards the left, not at all involved. So this is going to certainly be an area where you're going to want to give some consideration about what does it mean to you and your organization to bring leadership actively into the APQP process, and how do we ensure that leadership is kept up to date about the status? So I know some organizations are managing multiple launch projects simultaneously, so we've got multiple kind of APQP process streams happening. And how do we ensure that leadership's attention is on all of those, right? So I think that that's really key to give consideration to as well. How are we going to bring leadership into the APQP process? All right, so my third key change is on introducing gate management. Now, I hope for many of you who have already in place APQP processes that you likely have some kind of a gate management or gate review or phase review process to evaluate your progress as you're moving through your APQP efforts relative to preparing for launch with a customer. And so the idea behind gate management, and this is a whole kind of new concept that you'll see in the APQP manual, is about structured evaluations, in particular focused on your APQP outputs as you move through the phases of APQP. And so you might wonder, okay, well, what really are we looking for in these gate reviews? Like what is the purpose of those? Well, it's looking not only for timely accomplishment of those outputs, but also the quality of those output results. And I think that's a really key consideration because in the past we tended to focus on, do we have those items? But now we really want to see, do we have good quality outputs so that we can utilize those outputs to support our future projects, as well as managing changes that may happen to this existing project. We're also looking to how is that project progressing relative to the goals that we've set for it, and identifying ongoing actual and potential risks that may derail launch readiness. That's a big concern for your automotive customers these days. And then, of course, like with any other review activity, it's about making decisions and establishing follow-up actions as well. So one of the things I want you to be kind of thinking about for your business, if you currently have gate management, excellent. Maybe it's a chance to take a look at how is that gate management being performed, and is it really kind of embodying this idea of evaluation, and how are we making the information related to these gate reviews transparent and easily accessible. So I'd love to hear, does your organization currently utilize a gate management approach in your APQP? So you can share that with us here. Does your organization currently utilize a gate management approach in your APQP? And I won't be surprised if many of you say yes to this, because our experience has been most organizations that are formally performing APQP already have some type of a phase or stage review or gate review in place. And let's say the extent or level of detail of those gate reviews is dependent on the complexity of the organization's products that they're supplying to the automotive customers. So excellent. So we got somebody who's new to gate management, great guidance in the APQP manual, as well as, of course, some requirements now to implement gate management alongside of your phases of APQP. Awesome. All right, so over to our worksheet. I want you to think about, what does this idea of gate management and introducing gate reviews mean to you and your organization? What does this mean in terms of perhaps some improvements that you need to make to your current APQP process, who you're involving currently in those gate reviews? Think leadership, right? They should definitely be involved. And one of the things that you're going to find that's very helpful in the APQP third edition is that in the appendix that talks about gate management, there's a series of gate review checklists, for lack of a better word, we'll call it gate review checklist, that guides your organization as to what kind of outputs should you be reviewing at that particular phase of the APQP process. And of course, they're encouraging a cross-functional review, All right, my fourth key change is APQP starts with gate zero. Gate zero? What is gate zero? That's before we even begin, right? Well, yeah, the idea behind gate zero is program concept. And you could say, well, yeah, if we remember our 5 phases of APQP, the first one, phase one, is concept. But a lot of organizations, especially who are not design responsible, tend to skip those first phases, phase one and phase two, and jump right into phase three. With this introduction of gate zero, APQP is really saying, okay, before you jump in with both feet and really start investing time and resources and a commitment even to your customer that you're going to provide this product, let's reflect. Let's step back and take a look at our organization's capabilities. And let's also really do, a pretty detailed risk assessment of our organization's, risks and opportunities relative to that business with the customer as well. And so this idea of gate zero is really about internal assessment. And you'll see a number of different assessment tools that are now in the AIG APQP third edition. And what these are really kind of calling up is they're helping us bring forward lessons learned, organizational knowledge into our next iteration. To me, this is super important because of all of the personnel changes that are happening in businesses today. Without having kind of that pick up where we left off, or let's learn from previous lessons, iterations of APQP, that's going to accelerate us towards success in our future programs instead of having to reinvent the wheel every new program that comes along with our customers. So one thing you want to be thinking about in order for gate zero to really be beneficial for your organization is how accessible are those lessons learned and that organizational knowledge from previous APQP iterations, and how easily you're going to be able to bring that information forward for your organization to do an assessment of. So the question then becomes, when does APQP begin in your organization, right? And I'd love to hear from you guys. When does APQP typically begin in your organization? Is it when your customer comes to you with an RFQ? Is it when maybe your marketing people are pursuing some business opportunities? Is it only after you get an order, a purchase order from the customer, right? I know some organizations they're reluctant to invest too much of their time and resources into an APQP effort until they actually have a commitment from their customer, right? And especially if you're going to be involved in product design, that can certainly be a consideration. So when does APQP begin in your organization currently? Is there kind of this pre-look, this pre-assessment, if you will, of your organization's, lessons learned, what's worked in the past, what are our current capabilities, what kind of risks and opportunities may we face, or are we kind of waiting until we get that commitment from the customer with a purchase order, for instance? So I'd love to see any of your thoughts on when APQP is beginning in your organization typically. And hopefully this is kind of reflecting for you the need for APQP to start a lot sooner. I love that. At business pursuit, yes. I think that's great. And the great thing about starting your APQP at business pursuit is then you're going to be able to align with your marketing and sales people so that the message, the information that they're sharing with potential customers is promises that you can deliver on, right? And I can remember many times early in my career where sales folks would go out and say, yeah, we could do it all. And then they'd come back to the plant and say, okay, you guys got to figure out how you're going to do this now. Oh, and it's due by, the end of June. And that oftentimes created a lot of frustration internally and also a lot of disappointment with our customers as well. So yeah, excellent. Business pursuit, very good point there. So I want you to be thinking about, what would this look like in your organization if you don't currently have kind of a structure behind that internal assessment and aligning your capabilities and risks and opportunities with the business that you're pursuing? How can you make that work in your organization? Who needs to be involved? And I hope one of the things you're already recognizing is the need for cross-functional involvement. And this cannot just be like cross-functional, meaning the engineers. This is meaning leadership cross-functionally, as well as the different functional areas who are going to be implementing the actions necessary to meet the customer's requirements. So yeah, so be thinking about what that initial assessment of capabilities and risks looks like for your organization. Now, my fifth key change, all 5 phases of APQP apply to all organizations. Now, for those of you in the IETF 16949 world, you already know that you can't slip out of 8.3 in the ISO standard on product design and development, because we also apply those same requirements to the planning of our manufacturing process. But here's what we've seen in the past, and I'm really glad that the writers, the updaters of the APQP third recognized this, was that a lot of organizations looked at the 5-phase framework for APQP in the past and said, well, I'm not design responsible, so I don't have to do phase 2. And so if I'm starting my APQP when I get a customer order, I could just jump right into APQP phase 3. There's no concept to be concerned with. And as they have updated the outputs from each of these phases, as well as the expectations of activities, there's a lot more of a focus on the interaction of your overall planning activities and the intersection of product design with your plans for your manufacturing process. And I mean, I think many of you would agree that you cannot have an effective manufacturing process without a robust product design, and there's very much an interaction between those two. So I want you to be thinking about how your organization is identifying manufacturing requirements based on the product design. And just a reminder of these 5 phases. These are still the same. These have not changed, thank goodness. We still have phase 1 on planning, phase 2 product design and development, phase 3 process design and development, phase 4 our product and process validation, which culminates in PPAP, production part approval, and then phase 5, the feedback, assessment, and corrective action, which really underlies all of those phases. So these phases are still there, still the same. You'll notice a little bit of difference in terms of the overlap, where they've been a lot more intentional about the overlap, especially between phase 2 and phase 3, as well as the start of phase 2 and phase 3 relative to phase 1 in planning, to ensure that we are carrying forward our assumptions and that information that we had from gate 0 into the planning of our product and our manufacturing process. So I'd love to hear, does your organization currently utilize all 5 phases of APQP, or are phases 1 and 2 maybe a little foreign? Okay, I got a no and I got a yes there. All right, excellent, excellent. So maybe there's an opportunity to take a look and recognize those dependencies that exist between APQP phase 1, 2, and especially for the manufacturing side, APQP phase 3, because there's definitely some dependencies that take place. And one of the things I feel is very beneficial about the language, let's say the wording choices that they made in describing the 5 phases now, is that there's a lot more of a focus about phase 1 really being around the development of plans, where phase 2 and 3 is the execution of those plans towards design, and phase 4 is the evaluation. So you can really see that plan, do, check, act model very strongly reflected in those 5 phases as well. So be thinking about manufacturing depends on a good product, a robust product design, so certainly we want to make sure that we have that overlap. And there's things even in outputs in APQP phase 2 that are relevant to your product design. Now, my 6th key change is sourcing in scope. So this, I'm going to actually jump ahead because I want to get your point. To what extent is supplier performance and risks considered during your organization's APQP process? I'd love to hear this, first of all, because one of the things that I've seen, especially in the past decade, is that a lot of, let's say, larger tier 1s and even some, let's say, mid-sized tier 1s and tier 2s in automotive have kind of put their purchasing function outside of the operations. Maybe it's happening at a corporate level or something like that. And when it comes to APQP, the voice of the supplier is not there. Not only is the voice of the supplier not there, but how we're managing risks associated with supplier selection, and even the conditions of those suppliers based on their previous performance. So yes, we're seeing maybe a little bit closer to not at all versus always a key focus, which the idea is that it should always be a key focus. And so I say that we are only as good as our suppliers. That is the truth. And one of the things that, of course, happens early in our APQP process, usually even as early as phase 1, but definitely in phase 2, phase 3, is those make versus buy decisions. What are we going to do ourselves versus what are we going to outsource? Which supply partners do we need to engage as well? And we have to think about our supplier selection and qualification as we are going into our APQP process. And it doesn't mean we're always selecting new suppliers. In fact, I saw a statistic probably about a year ago that for most programs, even with these new technologies that are coming out, upwards of 65% of sourcing within an APQP effort is from existing suppliers. That's great because that means that we have some history with them, but are we taking a look at their performance and understanding, are they a risk to this new launch that we're trying to pursue, to this new APQP project? And so we're really emphasizing or seeing an emphasis in the APQP third edition and recognizing high-risk suppliers and managing those high-risk suppliers within the context of your APQP process as well, and putting in place contingency plans to manage those suppliers for a successful launch and also ongoing monitoring of their performance. This is one of the mistakes we oftentimes see, is that organizations may do their due diligence up front in selecting and qualifying a supplier, and maybe they're looking at their ongoing performance, but they're not necessarily going back to some of the, let's say, structural indicators within the supplier that lead to poor performance. So they're waiting until the performance scorecards are read before they're really understanding what is the risks at those suppliers. So what does this mean for your organization? I'd love for you to kind of percolate on that, because this may, for some of your organizations where purchasing is separate from your operations, it may mean building bridges to ensure that they have a seat at the table. They're an active part of your organization's APQP efforts as well. My seventh key change relative to APQP is that APQP outputs have to have change management. Now, this is, I think for some, you're going to say, well, yeah, we do change management for like our PFMEAs and our process flow and our control planes and our DFMEAs and our drawings. But this new, let's say, must in the APQP manual is really saying that every APQP output document has to have change management behind it. So what does that mean? That means things like assessments and plans also have to have change management behind them. And you folks are familiar, change management is basically understanding, hey, I've made a revision. Why did I make that revision? Who requested it, who authorized it, and when did I make the revision? So it's just basic, kind of document control. If you look at the APQP gate management, so I mentioned that there's these gate review checklists that they've got in the back of the APQP manual. I counted 45 distinct APQP outputs for which change control is going to be necessary. If you're trying to manage this on paper or Excel spreadsheets, I'm very concerned for you. I'm very concerned. So how does your organization currently manage change and revision control of APQP outputs? So you could be thinking about things like your drawings, specifications, FMEAs, control planes, but what about plans, like a plan for sourcing, a plan for equipment that we need to procure and qualify, a plan for qualification of our measurement systems. Those are even outputs now in the APQP that are going to be subject to change control or change management, and we're going to need to have some mechanism to manage those changes as well. So any inputs on that, how you're currently managing changes or revision control of APQP outputs? So I'm thinking that for a lot of organizations, you're probably going to have some outputs that you have a pretty good handle on in terms of change management. It's going to be some of those other outputs around plans, assessments, evaluation results that you're going to need to establish a change revision control for as well. Excellent. And so, what does it mean to your organization to now have to manage all those outputs from your APQP process relative to change management? And I think this is actually a great idea as well, because it ensures that we all are, like I say, singing from the same sheet of music, right? We're all on the same page at the same time. And especially with our workforces now being kind of remote or hybrid, this is extremely important that we are aligned with one common set of the most up-to-date information that we're working from at any time. All right, guys, we are just about in the home stretch here. I wanted to give you one bonus because I didn't get a chance really to say much about control plan. And the good news is there are a few changes with control plan, but nothing huge. Probably to me, the biggest change that I recognize in the control plan manual is the introduction of safe launch. And safe launch is really what oftentimes is referred to as early production containment or enhanced containment. The idea behind safe launch is really to be able to demonstrate to our customers that our APQP was successful. And we can guarantee through, let's say, additional controls early on in our production or series production that we are consistently meeting our customers' requirements. And so this idea of safe launch, I think it's been around for quite some time. Organizations may already have some type of a safe launch process or maybe even using safe launch control plans in their business already. In the AIAG control plan manual now, they recognize safe launch as it could be reflected in a separate control plan, or you could annotate either your pre-launch or production control plan with these additional enhanced controls in order to evaluate whether or not your early series production outputs are meeting your customers' requirements. So the one question I always like to ask is, how do we decide when we can exit safe launch, right? Like, how do we know that our APQP has been successful and we are going to be able to guarantee our customer good quality products ongoing in series production as well? So I'd love to find out, does your organization currently apply safe launch? Are you using safe launch? Do you have any customers maybe who are requiring the use of safe launch? Yes, I see that. Yep. And I wouldn't be surprised because safe launch is, we used to have early production containment at GM way back in the day. So it's been around for quite some time, especially when we're launching new technology, new products, maybe that we've not had an opportunity to complete, full validation. We may want to be in safe launch until we can complete that validation as well. So awesome. Great job. Great job. All right, guys, so we have done a whirlwind tour of the 7 key changes to the AIAG APQP 3rd edition. We also got that little bonus on the Safe Launch Control Plan. So I would like to find out from you, what insight did you find most valuable from today's discussion? What are you going to take away with you as kind of like your key aha, maybe your most surprising discovery about these new requirements? So what insight did you find most valuable from today's discussion? I'd love to hear from you about that. And we're going to open it up for some questions here in just a moment after I get your input here. And I've got one other poll I want to ask you to help us plan your choice, our next LinkedIn Live. And so if you've got questions, you can kind of start thinking about those, queuing those up in the chat as well. But would love to hear from you. What insight did you find most valuable from today's discussion? Which of those 7 key changes of APQP, or maybe it was something about safe launch? Thank you, Victor. Yep. So any insights? Okay, the impact of the must statements. Yes, I would have to say, and that's probably the reason why I made it my #1 change, because when I recognized what that was all about, I said, oh my goodness, this is going to be a game changer. And it's also a lot more, I want to say, evidence for auditors to be looking for when they're auditing your quality management system. Definitely leadership. Yes. Yeah, I agree. That's going to be, I think, a real learning edge for many organizations, is engaging their leadership a little bit more directly with their organization's APQP process. Excellent, excellent. And you guys can continue adding into these polls if you would like following the session. I want to just ask one more poll of you because I would like us to have our next discussion, our next LinkedIn Live, be on which of these key changes you'd like us to dig into further. Which would you like to learn more about? So you can vote on any of these. We're going to kind of see which ones vote up as the highest. So we've got the 7 key changes of APQP that we covered today, also safe launch, and then we could also do a little bit on the new control plan manual. We will do a session on the control plan manual in the future as well. In fact, I think that'll be our next deep dive out in June timeframe. But yeah, so which of these key changes would you like to discuss further and get a little bit more information about, maybe benchmark some of your peers? Which of these key changes would you like to discuss further? And you could just vote up which ones that you are most interested in learning a little bit more about. And with that, yeah, okay, everybody wants to hear more about the musts. Yeah, okay, so, and I can envision what that looks like for you guys. I got you covered. We'll create a must listing, right? And we can pick through those. The one thing too I want you to think about though with the musts is that the musts individually, yes, lead to audit evidence, but collectively they really architect a robust APQP process for your organization. So, all right, excellent, excellent. So, with that, I just want to ask you to mark your calendars and plan on joining us for our next LinkedIn Live. We're actually kind of experimenting if we're going to go back onto LinkedIn Live or use these Zoom sessions. We're going to kind of see how this works out with folks because we have a little bit better interaction with you here on Zoom than we do on LinkedIn. But Tuesday, May 28th will be our next session together at 11 a.m. And it's going to be your choice, those key themes discussions. So we're going to take the feedback. It sounds like the musts of APQP will be our key focus for our next LinkedIn Live session together. And please, in the meantime, stay connected with us on LinkedIn. We have the Future of Automotive, autocoretools.com. That group is out there. If you've not already joined the group, just go to futureautocoretools.com and request to join and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear what are you experiencing as you are learning more about these changes to APQP and control plan and implementing them within your organization as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to stay on the line for any questions before we close out today's session. So I've got about 5 minutes for any questions. So are there any questions? Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Edgar, thank you as well. Any questions, anything that's on your mind? Any ideas anybody would like to share about their first impressions about the APQP and control plan manual? All right. Well,
Am I able to, I'm sorry, Kathy, am I able
yeah,
to,
go ahead,
yeah,
Steve.
yeah. Wasn't
Absolutely.
sure if I
Yeah.
was still muted or not,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
yeah, you hit on the point that I was going through my mind, right at the end there about the impact on our internal auditors,
Yes.
in making sure that they're all leveled up on this and, you know, can go out and help others and make sure that we're all, meeting these requirements where those, especially
Absolutely.
where those musts are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the opportunity for organizations maybe is to start by looking, I say holistically at the changes, and then you can start parsing through those changes relative to your existing APQP process and see what kind of implementation work is going to be ahead. If you're missing a gate management process, if leadership's not engaged, so kind of recognize like where are those big rocks that are going to need to be addressed with some implementation or change action in terms of your process, and then bring in your internal auditors at the same time that they're understanding about these changes relative to what the APQP and control plan manuals say. They can also be giving feedback to your organization about the implementation of those musts relative to your organization's APQP process. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
very good. And leadership can take the lead in that.
I love that. Yes, indeed, indeed. Well, we need to bring them into the lead of this because at the end
Yes.
of the day, if we're missing a launch, it's all on leadership.
Yeah.
It's all on
Very
leadership.
good.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and we will look forward to seeing you again on May 28th. Keep in touch with us on our LinkedIn group at futureautocoretools.com. And thank you again for being with us today. We wish you the best success in implementing the new AIG APQP third edition and control plane manual. Thank you. Thanks, Martin. Bye bye. Thank you.